Big Pharma meets the Twitter files. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is another declaration of truth from your host, Terry A. Hurlbut. This morning, the Twitter files reporter Li Fang dropped another installment, this time about how Pfizer conspired with multiple so-called rivals. This is yet another conspiracy by Big Pharma, the collection of a small number of large drug makers. The object this time, to suppress any talk of developing a generic or people's immunization against the virus that shall remain nameless. This has nothing to do about whether such preparations work or not, or whether they work but not as advertised. Instead, this is about capturing a market for brand name drugs and suppressing the development of an open source preparation. It is also about conspiracy to suppress invention. If that doesn't violate the Sherman Antitrust Act, it should. Before I get into this admittedly unconventional objection to Big Pharma behavior, I do want to shout out to the prime sponsor of this channel, which is Conservative News and Views. Link in the description. And be sure to check out the awesome CNAV Store. Scroll down near the bottom for that link. Lots of great merchandise there, including this t-shirt that I have chosen for today, which reads, Pravda, better than CNN. And I'll tell you something. And why would it be? Because you're not hearing this on CNN. You are hearing it from independent reporters. One more thing. If you like what you're about to hear, you can like this video. You can also click the bell icon to get a notice every time I come out with a new one. In fact, do you see the new icon, the heart shape with the US dollar sign in it? That's the super thanks icon. If you really want to keep these videos coming, click that and leave me a tip. Any currency will do, so long as it's legal tender. First, some background. Now, you know I have a medical degree, so I'm going to share with you parts of the ugly side of the practice of medicine that I personally witnessed during my core clinical clerkship in internal medicine. Let me tell you something. I don't want anybody to tell me that I am speaking of events of 1982. Sure I am. But things haven't changed. In flexionary and medical training, the more things change, the more they stay the same. I welcome gentlemanly comment from any dean, service chief, or attending in a teaching hospital who cares to dispute what I am about to reveal. Why do drugs cost so much money? Because in order to recover their research and development costs, drug companies rely heavily on patents. But patents last only for a limited time. The U.S. Constitution so provides. And so do the constitutions, basic laws, whatever you want to call them, of nearly all other countries. What happens when patents expire? Other companies may then feel free to market the same chemical substances under their generic names. These names are almost always short forms of the chemical names, which follow the strict conventions of the International Union of Pure and Applied Chemistry. Exceptions do exist, like the name aspirin, which in the US is a generic name. In Canada, aspirin still has the protection of a trade name for acetylsalicylic acid. For that reason, typical prescription slips carry two different signature blanks. A pharmacist notes only the signature, not only the signature, but the label on the blank. Now, if it reads, dispense as written, the pharmacist must use the brand name the doctor specifies. But if it reads generic substitution permitted, the pharmacist may use the off-brand or non-brand. Drug companies lobby doctors hard to induce them to sign as dispense as written. Never mind how. All this assumes that the generic brand even exists. Now, almost immediately with the announcement of the pandemic of the virus that shall remain nameless, a cry went up to create a generic or people's jab. The pharmaceutical industry worldwide worked to quash that kind of talk. This, therefore, forms the background of Twitter Files Part 15. Twitter Files 15 has 15 tweets, so I have linked in the description to the first one and to every other tweet after that. Definitely click through the Twitter, because you will find embedded email, screencaps, document links, even quotes of other tweets. That's a real treasure trove. Now, the full text. Thread begins. New piece from the Twitter Files. How the pharmaceutical industry lobbied social media to shape content around jab policy. The push included direct pressure from Pfizer partner BioNTech to censor activists demanding low-cost generic jabs for low-income countries. In 2020, it was clear that the pandemic would require rapid innovation. Early on, there was a push to make the solution equitable, an international partnership to share ideas, technology, new forms of medicine to rapidly solve this crisis. But global drug giants saw the crisis as an opportunity for unprecedented profit. Behind closed doors, Pharma launched a massive lobbying blitz to crush any effort to share patents or intellectual property for new medicine relating to the virus, including therapeutics and jabs. Bio, that's B-I-O, the lobby group that represents biopharma, including Moderna and Pfizer, wrote to the newly elected Biden administration demanding the U.S. government sanction any country attempting to violate patent rights and create generic, low-cost medicines or immunizations against the virus. This brings us to Twitter. The global lobbying blitz includes direct pressure on social media. BioNTech, which developed the jab for Pfizer, reached out to Twitter to request that Twitter directly censor users tweeting at them to ask for generic low-cost jabs. Twitter's reps responded quickly to the Pharma request, which was also backed by the German government. A lobbyist in Europe asked the content moderation team to monitor the accounts of Pfizer, AstraZeneca, and of activist hashtags like, now here's one that reads #, then the word peoples without the apostrophe, then the two-syllable word you can all guess. It means jab. The potential fake accounts that Twitter monitored for protesting Pfizer, those are real people. Here's one the Twitter team flagged for potential terms of use violations. I talked to its owner. He's a 74-year-old retired bricklayer from the United Kingdom, and I talked to him on the phone. Now, there's a way to check whether an account is real or not. Now, before I continue with this thread, I want to shout out to a sponsor who can really help you through the economic storms to come. That sponsor is oursilverlines.com. Do you feel like you're working harder for your money just to get by? You are not alone. The fluctuating economy, employment issues, and unexpected changes in life have left many families struggling over the last few years. Collecting gold and silver can help shield you against many of these challenges. But if you're like me many years ago, you don't know where or how to start. Our Silver Lines helps by connecting you with thousands of members who are learning the secrets to creating and protecting true wealth by collecting precious metals. Whether you just want to collect rare and unique coins or take advantage of the business opportunities this company provides, either way, they can help you learn to live an exceptional life. Visit oursilverlines.com to learn how you can build a legacy for your future. And now I'm going to continue the tweet. And by the way, normally when I say I'm talking about Li Fang. It was Li Fang who talked to this man on the phone. Now, to continue. It's not clear what actions Twitter ultimately took on this particular request. Several Twitter employees noted in subsequent messages that none of this activism constituted abuse, but the company continued monitoring tweets. In a separate push, Pfizer and Moderna's lobbying group, Bio, fully funded a special content moderation campaign designed by a contractor called Public Good Projects, which worked with Twitter to set content moderation rules around virus misinformation. Bio provided $1,275,000 to the campaign, part of which is revealed through tax forms. The PGP campaign, called Stronger, helped Twitter create content moderation bots, select which public health accounts got verification, help crowdsource content takedowns. Many of the tweets that the bio-funded campaign focused on were truly unhinged misinfo, like claims that the jabs include microchips. But others Stronger lobbied Twitter on were more of a gray area, like jab passports and jab mandates, policies that coerce the taking of it. The Moderna-Pfizer-funded campaign included direct, regular emails with lists of tweets to take down and others to verify. Here's an example of those types of emails that went straight to Twitter's lobbyists and content moderators. Many focused on Zero Hedge, which was suspended. The Zero Hedge got its account back since then. Notably, this massive push to censor and label virus info never applied to drug companies. When Big Pharma wildly exaggerated the risk of creating low-cost generic jabs, Stronger did nothing. The rules applied only to critics of industry. Here is my reported piece with more detail. Link in the tweet. I was given some access to Twitter emails. I signed and agreed to nothing. Twitter had no input into anything I did or wrote. The searches were carried out by a Twitter attorney, so what I saw could be limited. Thanks to David Zweig and Leighton Woodhouse for help, and look for more Twitter reporting from Matt Taibbi, Mike Schellenberger, Barry Weiss, the Free Press, and others. You can find me on Substack. Here, again, link in the tweet. End of thread. Now understand this. Li Fang, at least here, clearly subscribes to the notion that the virus that shall remain nameless might be as deadly as the plague, at least when it first broke. Nor does he pass any judgment on the safety or efficacy of any preparation now on the market, and he throws cold water on certain notions on which I, your host for Declarations of Truth, am inclined to keep an open mind. His quarrel is simply this. Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna, AstraZeneca, and other firms acted to prevent the development of a low-cost immunization preparation. The world will likely never know whether such a thing was possible, or whether the generic preparations might have been safer and more effective than any product of Big Pharma might have been. Thus far, no one has reacted to dispute the basic premise of this thread. Most reaction consists of, there, you see? But user Kristen Ruby protests to Li Fang that she reported on these things first. I have links to the description to 4 of her tweets, 2 of which are the starts of threads that run earlier. Now, one of these tweets is in the middle of the thread. Now, this is a long one. Aside from that, I have links to the description to, first 2 tweets recalling that only recently did the law allow any drug company to advertise a prescription medication directly to patients. Other users remind us that the law shields Big Pharma and its members from lawsuits for untoward effects. I have links to the description. Then I have a link to a tweet explaining the African experience. This person pointed out that Africans must use a certain generic drug, which I won't mention here, against malaria. Well, that drug, by this theory, might have been effective enough against the virus that shall remain nameless. Well, I have it on good authority that jab penetration in Africa is not very low, not very high, maybe 6.5%. And I urge you all to check the epidemiology of the virus in Africa. The results might surprise you. Another user created a thread addressing the distortion of information regarding Gardasil. That's a jab against human papillomavirus, the causative agent of cervical carcinoma. I have a link to the start of his thread. 2 users wanted to convene criminal tribunals for Big Pharma executives, and one of them embedded a picture that I won't describe. Nothing particularly obscene about it, but its intent is unmistakable. Link in the description to that one tweet so that you can see that picture and the one it was replying to. Finally, I have a link to one rather sardonic tweet asking whether the German government would shortly request a de-amplification of the Twitter Files 15 thread. So what do we have? I'll tell you what we have. Two things. First, Twitter let yet another player or a group of players use it. Once you start doing this kind of favor for one, you cannot withhold it from others. In fact, Elon Musk himself addressed the initial reasons for the censorship tools and their abuse. I have a link in the description to his tweet addressing those points. He spoke of scams and spam. He didn't mention a few other things that might deserve censorship, like cyberbullying and solicitation and grooming. Individual solicitation and grooming, that is. We also see Big Pharma trying to capture a market. Free markets require unrestricted information. Furthermore, any company of size eventually places itself at moral hazard of trying to protect its market by illicit means. To say nothing of how Western society has allowed Big Pharma to grow so big. The people have grown vain and, yes, decadent by turning to industrial medicine to solve what are essentially lifestyle problems. Should appropriate authorities investigate Big Pharma for lying about the relative safety and efficacy of dispense as written versus generic in this context? Yes, most certainly. But we, the consumers of their product, must ask ourselves why we grew dependent on them. If they're now behaving like suppliers and pushers, what does that make us? Addicts, that's what. Now there's a tendency we ought to strive to overcome. Links in the description to my full article, to the thread, to Kristen Ruby's tweets and threads, to 7 other tweets in the order of my mention of them, to Elon Musk's statement on censorship, to my Declarations of Truth Twitter account, and to Conservative News and Views. I've also left links to the awesome CNAV Store and to oursilverlines.com, as I also mentioned. You know already about how to like a video, turn on notifications, and leave a tip. On the end screen, I'm going to leave a subscribe link to my channel and links to the Twitter Files playlist, an earlier video about Twitter revoking one of its misinformation policies, and a video by Jeremy from the Quartering who has addressed this issue already. This is Terry A. Horrible delivering another declaration of truth and reminding you to let the truth set you free.